Welcome, everybody. We'll just get started. First off, I'll just let you know we've muted everybody from here. If you have any questions throughout the session, pop them in the chat and someone will respond to you. So today we're going to go through the Janome AcuFill system, and I'm going to work with the Memorycraft 15,000, but I will refer to other models that it works with. I'm Melissa, by the way, from Janome, Australia. So the AcuFil quilting system is embroidery based, and it works as a hoop, an outer hoop, an inner hoop, and some magnets. Okay, so I have here the two different machine versions that we have available. This side, this hooping here, is for the embroidery only, the 400, 500 and 550, and the hoop is the ASQ 18B hoop, which is 180 by 180. Okay, and it's got 8 magnets to work around the outside. The other hoop that we have is the ASQ 22, and this one works on the 15, the 14 and the 12,000, and it is 220 millimeters across and 220 millimeters down, and also has 8 magnets. All right. So I'm going to step you through the process. To begin with, to work with the software or the templates and the hoops and everything, you need to install the software. In most cases, it is a standalone AcuFill CD that comes with the box when you purchase. In the case of the 15,000, it is built into Horizon Link Suite. So you can open your AcuFill tools, and this is where you can do printing, you can do template work, you can create your own designs and templates within that program. Today, I'm just going to show you how to work with the actual hoops. But if you've got questions or queries about the software program, head into your local store and they will be able to let you know more information about the software itself. Okay. The other things that we want to set our machine up with is our straight stitch needle plate. So you can see here, I've just got 3 little tiny holes in the middle. That one is our straight stitch needle plate. So I'm going to pop that one onto the machine. And I'm also using today the blue dot bobbin case. So the blue dot bobbin case is usually suggested for free motion quilting and hand look stitching, as well as AcuFill quilting. So it is going to reduce the tension. So I'll pop that one in here and set that ready. And I'm just going to pop away the 550 information for now. And I will show you here the size difference when embroidering between these two hoops. So the green here is for the larger hoop, so one single hooping. Okay. The pink section is the smaller hoop and gives you one single section. So both of them can do the same thing, just the size is the variant and the model, of course. Okay. So today I am going to show you on a small quilt that is 26 inches square. And I have popped this one together just with some basting spray. I've got my backing, my wadding, and my quilt top. And I have previously worked out my templates. So on this page right here, when I printed it out, up top, I've got my size. So it's set to millimeters currently. You can, in the program, click between millimeters or inches. The next one down is telling me I've got 3 repeats. Whoops. Would be helpful if I held on to my paper.
There you go.
I've got 3 repeats across and 3 repeats down. So this dark solid line is actually the edge of my hoop, and the dashed line, I'm not sure.
No, that's good. You're right.
Yeah. So the dashed line is my center of my hooping. So with this particular quilt, it's got little blocks at the center and then a border. So my first hooping is actually going to fall right, just by coincidence, not planned, right on this center right here. Okay. So in addition to this template, I also get an actual stitched. So this is what the machine is going to do, right? That I have cut out back to the correct size. So it prints out like this on 2 separate pages. I've trimmed away the bits we don't need and popped it together as one. So I'll just pop that to the side for the minute. And I'm going to take the hard plastic. So these ones are hard plastic, not like the standard hoops that we have. And they have an arrow at the top, so pointing you to the top of the hoop. And as does the template you're printing, it's got a little arrow pointing to the top as well through the center crosshair. So I'm going to line that up with my hoop, and I'll just grab my tape.
You have another set of hands, or you're good?
Let's see if I can. So I line up my center crosshair, and it's a little difficult for you to see because it's underneath of that blue, the heavy blue line. And I'm just going to rotate over, not move.
AcuFill. Oh, that's right, we've got a meeting.
Okay. Noise going on.
So she's just explained the hoop size.
All right. So I've now stuck this onto here. For our first hooping, it's not as crucial, but it is for every additional hooping. So I like to do it from the beginning, have it stuck on there so that I know when I've done, once I've completed my first one, my second, third, fourth, and so forth will continue. Now, this little quilt only has 9 hoopings. We're not going to do all 9 today, of course, but it only has 9 hoopings to complete the quilting. And each hooping is roughly 4 minutes. Okay. I'm going to work upside down here. You would normally work the right way up, but just for the camera, I'm going to work upside down. And as I mentioned before, I have this excellent little blocks in the center. So I can actually use my grid of my blocks to line up with this plastic. Okay. Try and move myself out of that reflection. There we go. Okay, so I'm just gently pulling the quilt through. We don't want to distort the quilt, so I'm just gently pulling the quilt to align it on the crosshair. If I didn't have these crosshairs, I could stitch a basting line on the sewing machine. I could chalk with a chalk marker or a water-soluble fabric marker, whichever you like to use. If it was a really large quilt and it was going to take me a while, or only wanted to do a couple of hoopings a day, I would probably run a basting stitch through there just so that I've got some points to reference. Okay, the reference points are the most important for your first hooping, not as important for the additional because then you work on your previously stitched design. So now I'm going to take the little magnets and I like to just lay them out roughly where they need to go, just so that they don't stick together. Okay. So we have 2 on each side. And as we attach them opposite each other just to disperse the push and pull of our fabric. Okay. And we're going to rotate from the outside to the inside. And hopefully it'll show up all 8. So the outside to the inside is just also to help with the stretch. We don't want to stretch the quilt to make it fit. We want the quilt to comfortably sit but not be drum tight. Okay, much the same as if we were hooping a standard fabric, just that we don't have an inner hoop and an outer hoop. We have the little magnets that are holding. Okay, so we just go around, work opposite each other for all 8. Okay, make sure they're nice and firm, and they will be firm. Okay, we want to make sure that they're down nice and tight. Now we are ready to take this to the machine. We do need to remember to take the template off before we get to the machine. And I have preset on my machine the design. So I saved it when I created my templates. I saved it to USB and plugged it in. So now I will just pop across to the machine. So as I said before, I've got the, would help if I put my bobbin back in. I've got the blue dot bobbin case, the straight stitch needle plate, the I'm going to just bring my bobbin thread up for this one. I'm not going to trim it off, so I've got a tail there. And I will attach the hoop to the machine. So it still attaches in the exact same way you would with other hoops.
Hang on. You had fabric caught under your hoop.
So you just want to check all of your quilt. If it's a rather large quilt, you might want to roll it, okay, just so that it doesn't get caught under anything. You could use some quilt clamps. You basically treat it similar to how you would a quilt on a standard sewing machine anyway. All right. So now that we have this attached to the machine, our design is roughly 4 minutes. And it's just a little meander stipple. So I'm going to start this on stitching. And then as it's stitching, I'm going to show you some other examples that we can do with the software. So I'll get this started. Now we do have a 1-stitch stop function on the machine as well that I've got turned on. So it did do 1 stitch. That allows me to pull up that thread that I had previously mentioned I'd left long. So I'll just pull that through. I now have both of my threads at the top. So if I wanted to, at the end of this hooping, I could go back through and stitch them in. It is locking off for me, so I can go ahead and stop my machine and trim that thread. So I'll just do that just so that they're out of the way. And we'll let that one stitch out. Okay. So it's just going to meander around. I don't need to do anything. I've already set all of its parameters previous. So now we'll go across. We'll talk about a couple of samples that we've got. So this little one here, for example, is when you download the software to the computer, and they come in 3 different versions. This one is just the design. This one is the design with the stipple. And then you've got the design as stipple and a border. So the 3 of them line up here. It's just the design. You can use that just on its own. You can use the design with a stipple. This one. And this one, the third one, a little harder to see on screen. But it's the design, the stipple, and a little tiny triple border around the outside just to finish it off. I've got a couple of samples of that. All of these are the design with the stipple. Got this little tiny stipple around, plus the design. And so depending on the software, when you install it, you will have multiple different versions, as you can see here. Okay, so we've got several different versions that you can work with. Layer up a couple more things here.
I just disconnected the microphone, sorry. What actually did we should be back here.
Yeah. So this one here is the same design 4 times in the center. Then we have the same design twice on either side. And then these corners are actually made up of one little design put together 3 times across and 3 times down. So 9 little separate pebbles to make up that single little design in the corner. Okay, so depending on what you would like to do, you have lots of different designs. These are all available in the software, and you can pop them together to create your own designs or to fill areas as you wish, and then just print out their templates and stitch them on. This is another version of, again, a design that's built in. So this is just the one design, as you can see here. And we've then stitched that out the 4 times around. And again, 2 on either side of that. We're nearly finished. So we'll do one more of this. And then I will go back to...
I'm just showing while it's stitching.
So this one here I've got on an angle. This one is actually one hooping, which gives us both sides. And we've just then repeated it. So I've got it right here, repeated it down the fabric. So we have 4 hoopings, and it will then do, say, a border, a sashing, whichever you would like to use it for. And then you just rehoop each additional time using your template and your previous stitching. It'll line up. That'll make more sense after I take this hoop off and start to show you. So let me just move these off. Okay. So I have stitched in a red color, which is to contrast on the screen. Hopefully you'll be able to see the stitching in red. We then would like to remove our magnets. Okay, so I just pop my finger, my thumb preferably, under one end and kind of pull it up on an angle. Okay, and we go the whole way around, remove all of those, and then we need to bring back our template. We need to make sure the top of our template, so we've got our little arrow, the top of our template stays at the top of our quilt. And you might like to mark this. You might put some pen, like a little mark top on the wadding. You might put some pins or something like that into there just to mark your top. And then we need to now move our quilt to do our additional hoopings. So I usually like to do the center and then work either side and then up and down. So I'll just move across this side so it stays in screen. And I'm just going to lay that hard plastic inside just to find where my hoop is and try and check how straight I am. And this whole time, I'm referencing that central line that I had on my previous design. Just pop those magnets over so they don't fall off. And I'm moving my hoop over until I see the edge of my previous stitch line. Okay. Trying to move the hoop and the hoop, not my
fabric.
Yeah, not the fabric.
Good work.
Okay. So I can still see my central line. I'm just on the edge here, so I can magnetize still there. All right. And then I'm going to work the ins and outs, and I'll just show you closer on a template that I've got already prepared. So all of these ins and outs, okay, here, I'm working along the edge of my previous stitched line, okay, so that the stitching will then go in and out of each side. So this side then needs to line up with the other side, like this side over here. All right, so you always need to have your right on the right, the left on the left, top on the top, bottom on the bottom, so that the ins and outs are always complemented. Okay, so then we can hoop again. Once we've found everything is all lined up, we can see it's working together. We just then pop our template hoops back on again, like so, and we continue.
You're hooping a different way this time?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Opposites. I got excited with where my magnets were.
Oh, that's okay.
Opposites like that. One on the top, one on the bottom. Okay, then we can take it back to our machine and stitch our second hooping. Now I'm just going to move this one off for the second and show you a pre-prepared. So I'm going to show you the back of this one first. So here you can see between here and here, we've completely stippled all of this piece of fabric. Okay, so you could do something like this, and the project that we have as the accessory of the month this month does exactly this. You are able to hoop up a big piece of fabric, stitch it all out, then you're going to cut it back and turn it into a project, which I'll show you. The other little sample I've got here, so this is done on the smaller hoop. So this is still probably, it's a large cot quilt, I would say. This one took maybe a couple of hours to quilt and was on the smaller hooping. It was about 8 hoopings across the narrowest part, and I think it was about 10 hoopings down the longest part. Okay, and it's done with a variegated thread. So we've got a variegated grey, cream, and white kind of coloured thread. So you can see it better on the solid colours, but see how it blends. If I slide down a fraction, see how it blends into fabric. So I did not have to sit and move any quilting to do this stipple. The machine did all of it. I just had to rehoop each additional time to fill this area. Okay, so maybe a couple of hours for that little guy. The next one I'll show you, this is a rather large quilt, so I'm not going to be able to show you all of the quilt, but this was just a little panel that I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do with it. It's upside down. I didn't want to cut the fabric up because, of course, it's very busy fabric, but I then just put my panel with some border print, and a little difficult for you to see because I've matched my thread color on this one. It's a variegated green, but I have put this design just right here. So you can see, okay, I've got this design on there, and then each additional hooping. So this is now a second hooping. This one was my first, for example, and then I just keep working. So I've worked left to right on this one, top to bottom. I've only got a couple of hoopings left on my bottom before I finish it. And each one of these little hoopings was about maybe 5 minutes. So this one has so far maybe about a day of quilting on and off. I do other things whilst it's stitching, of course, so I don't necessarily have to sit and just watch. I can sit alongside of my machine. So that's that one. And now I've got a couple of others here that are a bit more involved rather than just a single design. So this little guy, I'll show you the back of it. So this is the back. You can see it's quite busy. And this one is made up of a lot of smaller designs made into a hooping. So I'll show you the template. This here was several designs that we've filled into one hooping, and then we've hooped it multiple times. And there's an alternate, okay, so we can alternate our hoopings. So if I open this one out, this is like a little table topper, and we stitched this on with a gold embroidery thread rather than a quilting thread, because it's not going to be used, we're not going to sleep under it or anything like that. We have used the embroidery thread on the top and on the bottom. So you can see the gold finer embroidery thread there, and then you can see the gold on top here. Okay, and it's, as I said, made up of a lot of different little designs. Complements quite nicely with the pattern and the fabrics. Okay. And got a few more here. This little one, it's the back. This little one is made up of multiple individual designs, and then we've cross-hatched with the sewing machine. So it's got both versions of quilting. This one here is probably a little harder for you to see because it's tone on tone, but it's got a big design, big medallion style design at the middle, and then multiple little ones around. And it's actually a triple stitch. So it looks quite heavy in the stitching rather than just a single run line like we would achieve on the sewing machine. Then another option you could choose to do is something like this guy. So this one has some sashing rows through the middle. We have some individual blocks, and we've filled these accordingly. So these individual blocks up here, I'll move down, has like one single shell in it, whereas we then filled this white section here with pebbles, and then we've got the leaf design running through the sashings top and bottom here. Okay, So it gives you a little bit more custom quilting ability rather than just all over as well. And that just, you can print these templates and place them into the positions and then stitch them. And sometimes if you've printed a template, you can use that multiple times on different designs, different quilts. This one here is an example of another. So you can see all of this. So this is 1, 2, 3 hoopings, and then we've done one up here for our 4th hooping, and then there'll be an additional here and here, and then 3, of course, along the bottom. Also in a variegated thread. So it's just a white background fabric, but the variegated thread. Okay, and the embroidery machine, of course, did all 3 of those, all 4 of those. So the accessory of the month project for this month steps you through creating this piece of fabric with this design, okay? And you can see here we've got 3 through the center, 2 on the side here. We've got our 3rd one ready to go in here. Once you then create the fabric, you're able to create this little bag. And this little bag opens out. So if I just undo this, you can see the inside. It's not a lined bag. It's got binding on the inside. So you can still see the right side and the right side and the wrong side of your quilting. And it just opens out. Okay. So that one's available on the Janome Australia webpage. You can download it from the inspiration section. And it actually, when you quilt up your fabric, makes up 2 bags. So you have enough for 2 panels of this one and this one, that you can then make up your bag.